Well, this article is about bacteria that was found in the seabed. It had been found drilled many kilometres underneath the surface of the sea in rock layers that are traditionally assigned a date of over 100 million years old. And on top of this particular layer of rock, there was an impermeable layer, which meant that no living organisms or no nutrients could get down below this layer of rock, which was impermeable, which meant that what was found in this 100 million year old rock were bacteria that could not have been contaminated. And they discovered, to their surprise, that they could reactivate this bacteria and it came back to life. And this caused scientists to think, well, what was going on? And they said, isn't it marvellous that bacteria can survive 100 million years? Well, that's not really going to be the case because there is just the laws of entropy that mean that all living organisms will break down over time, and if there's no nutrients getting there, they couldn't possibly survive and reproduce. It does make sense if you have only a few thousand years since the flood. And this is a common thread, that finding of soft tissue in dinosaur bones and other fossils, the finding of carbon-14 in diamonds and coal and in fossils, all supposedly millions of years old, and yet having biological life, as it were, in the form of DNA and collagen and muscle and hemoglobin and things like that, which can only last thousands of years. So we have multiple lines of evidence, and this one of the bacteria in these rocks, that point to a recent worldwide flood. And it's surprising that the scientific community is unwilling to acknowledge the seriousness of the problem they're facing with soft tissue, bacteria, sometimes finding flies and mosquitoes in amber, where the blood in the mosquito is still blood, still got living material in there. And really, it shouldn't take too much common sense to say, if we're finding living material in what we think is millions of years old rocks, that actually those rocks aren't millions of years old. They're the product of a recent catastrophic worldwide flood. Interestingly, in 2 Peter chapter 3, we are told in the last days people will laugh at the idea of a worldwide flood. It's only really since 1800 has the idea of a worldwide flood been laughed at. It's around 1830 that the geologists of the day changed their attitude towards the worldwide flood. They rejected it and embraced an ancient earth. They had no real irrefutable evidence that the earth was ancient. It was based on a series of assumptions, and there was actually good evidence to suggest that the earth was not ancient, and certainly not a gradual process. One of the most obvious was the polystrate fossils, where you had tree trunks going through multiple layers of rocks, which are supposed to be millions of years old, or hundreds of thousands of years old. Trees don't stay around that long. And they were finding these things in the 1820s and 30s when they were mining for coal. So they had enough obvious evidence to suggest that the old Earth paradigm was not possible, not true. It was falsified by these logs, these tree trunks that went through multiple layers of rock. The obvious conclusion, if you've got tree trunks going through multiple layers of rock, is that those rocks, all of them, including the several layers of coal, were actually formed at the same time. And that makes a big, big difference. That actually says worldwide flood. So people are without excuse. Even in the 1830s, there was enough evidence to say a worldwide flood. Why did you have a whole sort of graveyards of fossils which had marine creatures, land creatures, all mashed together. It's got to be a worldwide flood. But people chose not to believe in a worldwide flood. They rejected God. And as we know from Romans 1, if you reject God as creator, if you reject what he says, then terrible things will happen in a culture that rejects God. It says in the Bible, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So this paper is just one more example of finding living organisms supposedly intact over hundreds or millions of years. This is hundreds of millions of years. This is not going to be credible. It is not going to be credible. Much simpler, much more accurate to believe in a worldwide flood. Well, thank you for listening.